I'm Chrissy Thomas.
That's lovely, Chrissy. Now, as you know, we're talking about the pantomime, and I wondered how you got involved.
Well, my youngest at the time had just started school. I was taking him to school, and a lady ran up to me, a lady called Teresa, I later found out, who lived in Park Avenue, as we did, and said that she thought I looked like someone who would want to be involved with the pantomime. Well, I didn't know which pantomime she meant, and then I had to point out that I was actually quite pregnant and wouldn't really fit into any costumes by Christmas. So I got away with not being involved that year, but of course the next year, that was it. I got hooked, and that carried on, I think, for 17 years.
Oh, that was amazing. What did you think when you saw the first pantomime? Did you go that year you were pregnant just to see what you might get involved in?
I did, and it was incredibly minimal. It didn't look as though it would be a huge commitment at all at that time. And when I joined the following year, I think it was Jack and the Beanstalk, and it really was very minimal. One of my enduring memories of that is one of the other ladies bringing a little bit of music. That was the only music we had on a cassette player, which was a Fisher-Price children's cassette player, one of those old brown plastic ones. And that literally was the music for the pantomime. That's how different it was in those days.
My goodness, that's unbelievable, because I just remember wonderful music being played live.
Yes, no, there was no live music at that point, no speakers. Similarly, costume, I think we all did our own, and at that point when I joined, it really was just sort of pinning a bit of tinsel onto your evening dress or something like that. So
goodness, that's amazing.
Very different.
Because as everybody will know, that you're a wonderful singer. So did they ask you to sing?
Very kind.
Did they ask you to sing in that first pantomime without music, or did they not involve?
I think we all did a little bit of singing there, but again, it was very, very basic, very simple. So.
What was the time commitment that you had to put in as a pantomime
I think that
player?
first one was literally turn up for a couple of rehearsals, and then you just did one performance for the children, and that was it.
Goodness, so that was very different. So how did it make that transition from being something that was quite minimal to something as elaborate as I remember?
Well, I think gradually over the next few years, like-minded people got together, and most of us had some sort of art background. And I think a lot of us had 2 and 3, 4 children, and we were at home. Most of us were at home, not going out to work, and I think it was a way of channeling our creative juices, really. So I think we realised that one person had a flair for costumes, someone else had a flair for the singing, and so on. So we all found our strengths, and Richard Wilmot got on board and clearly had a talent for the writing and also a lot of the props. I think it probably fell to about 3 of us at first to do all the creative stuff, and everyone else just turned up. And then after a couple of years we started meeting up pre the rehearsal time to discuss it, and gradually it became the entire autumn term, I think. By the time Moira was on board, much more time consuming.
So you created something for really creative minds, didn't you?
I think so, really... yes, that probably is how it worked, yeah.
And how do you think the children received the pantomime? Because as you were involved in for so many years, did you see that change?
Oh, they absolutely loved anticipating it, I think. And there were still some tears, though, because some of them were very believed that, you were actually this witch and you weren't, you know, Jacob and Jordan's mum or whatever. And I think there was, though, that great anticipation, because it went from one performance to two, and then an evening performance, and then 2 evenings performance. And I think eventually we were doing sort of six performances, I think.
Goodness.
Moira might remember how many.
So lots of performances and the children really enjoying it. That's great.
Yeah.
How did you feel that pantomime group? Did they become quite close friends?
Yes, very much so. Yeah, it was a real community thing. Yes, and we're still, most of us are still in touch now. Yeah.
So that's a huge.
It really did cement lots of friendships. I think working towards, it's the usual thing with drama. You know, working towards that common goal, having some sort of sense of responsibility for it, the commitment. Yeah, lots of parties it generated, I think.
That's good. Did you feel a bit of a sadness when you stopped being involved in a pantomime?
I think the realisation that your time was almost up because your children were at the end of their days at Hazelwood, because I had 4, so it did go on for a long time. I think the last couple of years, there was a certain poignancy about it, but it was very sad. It felt like the whole pattern of your year was going to change, because it really did. In the last years, it really did take up the whole of the autumn term, and you did wonder how you would feel the following year without that as part of your life. But actually, other things started taking over from that. When we knew that some of us would be leaving the pantomime, I think that was when we did the first cabaret, Hazelwood Cabaret, which we held at Pilgrim's Rest, which no longer exists in Hazelwood Lane. So I think already, because other people had joined, there was now the live music, people started using their musical skills, and we started new things. So, and when it eventually did finish, my sort of participation in it, I think the following year actually you realise that it was part of an era, and it was the right thing to pass it on to the next generation of parents.
Was it always the case that people who were parents at Hazelwood were involved in the pantomime and you had to leave when the children left? Or was it just accepted?
No, and I'm trying to think. I think I may have done one more, actually. I can't quite remember now. It's quite a long time ago. No, I think some people did carry on their involvement, but it didn't feel quite the same if your own children weren't sitting there in the audience. And of course, as the years go on, although we all kept on supporting it and going along and watching, as the years went on, you realise that you didn't see that many familiar faces in the audience of children or parents, because they were all moving on.
So it lost that sort of hold, really. But as you say,
yes, but then other things, as I say,
took over. The cabaret and probably the St Harmonicas and all that.
Yeah, all of that
came out of it. That's lovely. What about your own children? We talked about children from the school. What about your own children? How did they feel about it? They were all involved with shows themselves. They were all very much, at that time, they were all very much involved with singing and little drama classes, ballet classes, this sort of thing. So it was fairly normal for them, and they loved it. I never got any sense that they were embarrassed. Never. I think they loved it, actually. I always got that feeling they were quite proud of the involvement. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you.